Good morning, everybody. Welcome to New York. Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for the opening treatment, Robert. I want to welcome everybody on all the platforms. Jimmy just gave a long list of announcements. I only will say, if you're watching us on Zoom or Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, send us a message and we can send you a link for Zoom, because if you're here on Zoom, you're able to interact with us, and we have a time of sharing after everything we do. It's a nice way to connect with the community, so do that if you can. Jimmy did mention that we are somewhat behind. We have upwards of 500 people to contact now. So that's it's a good thing in a way, because we've planned for growth. Now we have to deal with the growth that we've planned for. So we're grateful. Let me start this morning by giving great thanks for the knowledge that each of us have a place where we belong, a place that is ours, uniquely a place where we feel safe, whole, and complete. We give thanks for the recognition that in this special place, which is in our own mind, in the heart of the universe, that each of us creates our own sense of empowerment. In that empowerment, we choose thoughts and beliefs that enrich us today, tomorrow, and forevermore. Today's lesson was inspired by a lesson from one of my old favorites of Dr. Bill's. I've heard this lesson have about 3 different titles over the years, and we've used it for a class or two, and we've had it called Toot Your Own Horn, Blow Your Horn, and even one time it was Shake Your Booty. So here we go. It never ceases to amaze me how many people, when we're younger and through our lives, have been taught to hold our tongue, be humble. That was the way to go, be humble. And it was considered a great virtue to be patient and quiet and wait on the Lord and all of that type of thing. Also, in my childhood and others, being meek, going with the flow, and all that type of thinking. They're all virtuous, they're thought to be virtuous approaches to life. And many of us as children weren't encouraged for the most part to toot our horns or express who we really are, or celebrate who we really are. I think go back now to Emerson in the mid-1800s, and he was all about self-realization, self-expression, and being unique and not going the way of the herd or the crowd and finding your own voice. But he was an exceptional person with a great message, and most of us were socialized quite a bit differently. Somewhere along the line in our socialization, some people say our entrainment, we've been taught to hold our tongues. And you might remember the old saying regarding children, at least it was around when I was a kid, children are to be seen and not heard. So we've come a long way on this, but still society wants you to fit in and encourages you to get along and follow and not necessarily think for yourself and express for yourself. So in this teaching, this is a really amazing teaching, because we're really encouraging you to find your own voice, to find your own heart, to find what you legitimately connect with that can make you happy, to find your purpose, and to toot your own horn and begin to think for yourself. In our society, they want you to downplay your achievements, to hide your light a little bit. So to be proud of your thinking and your thoughts and your achievement, there's a tendency for people not to want you to toot your own horn. And if you're really good, and you have great thoughts and feelings about yourself or your accomplishments, society generally doesn't want you to be bragging about that either, or telling anybody, and maybe you feel it's wrong because that's part of your conditioning too. And then, like many things that we have been taught in our socialization as children, that would be pretty high on the list, you know. So here's the thing we teach you. You were meant to be a star. You're meant to find your inner voice. You're here to toot your own horn, to not hide your light. When I was preparing the notes for the fifth time in my life on this presentation, I recall it, Madonna, express yourself. I mean, we're here to express ourselves and not be wallflowers. You know, find that thing and get excited about it. If you don't have a well-defined sense of yourself, then the odds are about 10 to 1 that those people who do have a strong sense, they're going to dominate you in some way. They're not only going to dominate you, it's likely that they're going to walk on you. As we learn our life lessons, I think it becomes important to understand that there is a big, big difference between having a strong, inflated ego, which more often than not is a cover-up for lacking confidence and security, as compared to having a really calm self with a self-assured presence that is rooted in connection and source and knowledge, self-knowledge, you know, connection with life itself. If you have this connection, you're most likely living from a very powerful and creative place where you are seeing the good, using the good, knowing you're supplied and supported. When you're living in this self-realized state, there's no need to cover up any insecurity. The old-time religions would say, have faith in the Lord. We have faith in life itself as we're really connected in this teaching. I was raised a Catholic kid in a family, and there was a quote from the Beatitudes that was addressed in this talk years ago. And the Beatitudes are misunderstood. Many things in the scriptures you might recall, you know, one of which, the meek shall inherit the earth. And Dr. Bill in those days and said, that's what they get. They're going to get the dirt if they don't raise their consciousness. The science of mind has never been a teaching of humbleness unless you're going to define what it really means, which means being teachable. And hopefully each of us are that. Hopefully we are teachable. We're not all about piety either. And I haven't seen that word in ages, so I thought, let me look that up. A person who has piety is a person who's maintaining the beliefs or the point of view that is accepted without thinking, maintaining conventional reverence for all things. So to be clear, our teaching has never been a teaching that espoused piety in that way. We're not about conventional thinking. We're not about status quo, trying to maintain things that can't be maintained. And we're not suggesting anyone take anything without thinking. We want you to think. We present you with ideas. We present you with a teaching, and we want you to prove it to yourself, not just accept what we say. In fact, we encourage you to wake up and to toot your own horn and think your own thoughts. If you haven't done that, maybe it's time, right? This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is your life, and much of it's, for many of us, have already gone by. So however you can, stop what you're spinning and wake up and get excited about your life. This is what we do here. This has never been a teaching in any way where we inferred it's appropriate to hide your real self behind any kind of role or mask. You know, we're not trying to hide here our personality. And we're not attempting to teach you that you ought to blend in like a wallflower or do what everybody else is doing. And you know, we're really hoping you find the courage to step out of all of that. So the teaching, the science of mind, has always been, you know, and I've read a lot of philosophy and theology. We always suggest that you not only be the very best that you can be, but celebrate being the very best that you can be. Celebrate who you are. Emerson always suggested that we learn to hitch our wagon to the stars or big ideas. And of course, there's a fine line here. You know, it's one thing to say all this, and you know, or some people are just faking it. But really, you know, hitch your wagon to the stars and big ideas, and embody this. And My second community time today, there's a piece that I have that will show you how to do that. If there's part of me that really doesn't want to be, here's a question. Is there a part of you or me that really doesn't want to be the best I can be? That doesn't want to express myself fully? Maybe because my life is relatively pain-free and I don't want to rock the boat, right? I just want to maintain the status quo. We think wrongly that we can maintain the status quo. For many people who don't expect much out of life, happiness for them is just being free of pain. They're not looking for much more. Happiness is just keeping everything under control or under wraps. And they're hoping nothing can rear its head to bite us or bite you. But the sad part of that, of course, is that we never can keep anything really under control for any length of time because everything changes. One of the basic laws of life is nothing in life is constant, but everything changes. So if we're trying to keep everything under wraps or under control, and we don't want to rock the boat, any boat, sooner or later, not only is that boat going to rock, but you're going to fall out of the boat because you won't have any alternative. You do have a choice to make about whether you want to blend in and be and do what everybody else is doing, or start thinking for yourself and tooting your own horn, just getting excited about your life. So you can play whatever, you can live whatever role you want to do, you can do whatever you want. But if you're living the way where you're not expressing yourself and you're just going along and trying not to be noticed, and Dr. Bill said, well, that's kind of average. But for the most part, he questioned even if it's average. He thought perhaps it's mediocre. Many people are living without a clue of what their purpose here is, or what they could be doing, or what they've come here to express. Many are living out what their parents taught them, and they might find themselves now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they're thinking, my God, I haven't really lived my own life yet. And in a way, it's kind of copping out. You can't really blame anybody. That's not what we're here to do, but maybe they haven't really thought about any of these things and realized you're here to shine and to sparkle and to really be amazing. Maybe we say we're average guys or women, and maybe it comforts us. If you accept this state, you don't want to stretch beyond the bounds of where you've been. After all, you might be pain-free for the most part, but for many of us, I know with me, there's often this gnawing sense that I can do more, I can express more. Or for many of you, it might be what your life could have been if you took another road. Many people settle for average, as I said before, or less than average. And we can rationalize, well, we're paying our bills, maybe not always on time, but at least we're paying them. We probably have a roof over our head of some kind. Maybe it's not one we'd like. We might have our clothes and food, but perhaps not what we would like. And it may be we don't have any sense of opulence. We don't know that we're the rich child of a loving source. So we wear what we wear, we eat what we eat, we stay where we stay, and we stay in situations with people and situations of all kinds, and we rationalize that, well, at least my needs are being met. And why would I rock the boat? I don't have too much discomfort other than this little bit of gnawing regret that I could have, like Brando, been a contender. And we don't want to rock the boat, many of us. We don't like the idea of pain, and we hate change. And so here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, from this great lesson. The boat's going to rock, and it's rocking anyhow. It doesn't matter whether you rock it or you don't. It's going to rock. This precious life is spinning by. Just this week, past week, 4 of the people I know in my world have passed and made a transition. They weren't expecting to go either, and they're not here anymore, at least not in form. This precious life is spinning by. It's not a dress rehearsal. So seize this day and all the moments of the day. It's been my experience also that if I don't rock my own boat, someone else is going to rock it for me. And at a time where I really don't want them to rock it for me. So I would suggest we all start seizing these moments and fill them with power and use the power that we have. Because just when we think we've got everything under control, whatever it is, life rears itself up and there's more to deal with, more to get through. I think we have an obligation, if we're going to remain in religious science and embody the science of mind teaching, we have an obligation imposed upon us that says, I can't maintain the status quo. Number two, since I cannot maintain the status quo, it's really incumbent upon me to decide which direction it is that I want to go. Do I want to grow? Or do I want to recede and shrink? If I don't pay attention to what I'm thinking and doing, I'm going to shrink. If I try to keep everything and everyone the same, I'm in for some very big lessons. If I'm trying to just keep it all the same. Now, that's not necessarily my opinion either. It's just common sense. If you don't grow, you're going to perish. If you don't open up your mind and your heart, if you don't expand, you're going to contract. You may convince yourself that you're going to stay where you are for a while, but all you have to do every few months, say about every 6 months, go look at a full-length mirror. Closely check yourself in the mirror, and you will observe that you're not staying the way you thought you were. Have you ever looked at the mirror after a period of time and thought, who is this person I'm looking at? Because if nothing else, gravity catches up with all of us. And all those wonderful firm parts of our body begin to sag, and they don't look the same way. And our society worships youth, sadly. People can have a hard time with all that if they're caught up in what the media says or what society imposes upon us as being good and beautiful and all the rest. More and more in the science of mind philosophy, I see the necessity of celebrating where we are right now. Doesn't matter if you're 40, 50, 80, there's a need to celebrate where you are right now. It doesn't matter if you've lost in the game of life up until now, you celebrate where you are right now. There's power in this moment, and you can change just about anything. You got to start loving yourself to celebrate that you, right? You got to celebrate the path you've been on, and you've got to celebrate your life. And well, you don't really have to, but this is a way out of all these traps. Is begin loving yourself and realize everything you've done has brought you to the place you are now. If you're a guy, for example, you might be happy that you've rid yourself of maybe some of your macho identity, chauvinist attitudes, what some people call in today's society the toxic part of ourselves. Maybe you have learned, if you're a man, to claim back some of your sensitivity or what people might refer to as your feminine side. And if you're a woman, maybe you've learned to celebrate being a woman, to celebrate that you're a woman, and at the same time claiming back your strength and power that you might have given away to some degree in the past. And when it comes to all of our relationships, the challenge that most of us have had to some degree is that we think some other person is here to make us happy. Now, I don't know where that ever came from, but a lot of people have that. It's never been seen, I've never seen in any vows of any marriage ceremony I've ever done. I've never seen the promise to love, honor, and care for you and to make you happy for the rest of your life. Or any vow that says I'm personally responsible for you, not only for your physical well-being, but your emotional well-being, your financial well-being, and on and on. Nor is your partner here to be some pretty status chick or some pretty appendage on your arm to feed your ego. Sometimes we forget there is a person there with their own ideas and dreams. It's not just a look, it's a person, not an appendage. And now, what kind of relationship are you having today? You see, here's one of the big questions. It's very important to ask. I ask a version of it every Thursday night at 7 p.m., as some of you know. What is your relationship like with you? What's the dialogue that goes on with you? Are you being lovely and kind to the most important person in the world? How do you feel about the uniqueness of yourself in this world? Are you excited being you? There's 10 billion or more people on the planet. It's amazing. All these spiritual beings, that you are unique in all the world. It's a bit mind-boggling if you think about it. On the other side of the coin, none of us are more unique than any other person here, right? With all these billions of people have their own uniqueness. And for whatever reason, the biggest majority of them have decided not to celebrate their uniqueness. Just think of the throngs of masses of people. And they don't know what you know. They're not celebrating necessarily their uniqueness. They don't know that they can find their voice and be at the crest of the wave and see the things you can see in this teaching. I swear it's like the masses are asleep. I've decided that it's appropriate to celebrate my uniqueness by being the very best that I can be, and I'd like you to consider doing the same. So we need a commitment to celebrate ourselves, celebrate being ourselves, loving ourselves more and more. The ultimate celebration of being you is to resolve that you are no longer going to be satisfied with what appears to be the status quo. You're not going to try to fit into the mold. You're going to realize that you are on a lifetime journey of evolution and change. And it's up to you to do something with you and your life, and to toot your own horn. You have, as all of us do, every tool you could possibly need. First of all, you are cosmic mind made manifest. The very stuff that's in the stars is in you. Whatever the stars and everything else are made of, that very thing, that energy is in you, operating through you. You really are cosmic in your scope, filled with divine energy. Now, you have a mind in which there are certain laws that are clearly apparent. And these laws are no respecter of person, place, or thing. Now that came from Ralph Waldo Emerson, I'm sure. Laws that operate and don't care whether or not you know that they are laws. Laws don't care whether or not you're in harmony with them. They appear to have no personal factor involved in them. They are mechanical in that way. If you heat water long enough, it's going to boil, right? When it gets hot enough. If you take that same water, you put it in the freezer, it gets cold, it's going to freeze. Those are laws on water, right? If you learn how to harness the flow of electricity, it can turn on the lights. I don't have to pray to God above or God anywhere to turn on the lights. I will flip the switch in this room. I've complied with the laws of electricity, and the lights are going to go on. I can also use that switch to cook my food or to electrocute someone. The law doesn't seem to care how I use the law. It doesn't seem to have any personal vested interest in what the law is used for, because the nature of the law is very simple. When you comply with the necessity to give input into the law responds to us mechanically. And here's another thing. Every law that anyone else is able to use, you are able to use or not use. You're able to disavow, but the law is still going to be the law. It's kind of like God doesn't really care whether you believe in God or not. You know, and the laws don't care whether you believe in them or not either. They are there and they respond. And they don't really care whether you use them or you don't use them, because you're using them whether or not you think that you're using them. And of course, the basic law that we work with and deal with, as you all know, is the law of cause and effect. And that's a very simple one. But for every effect, there has to be a cause. And for every cause, there will be an effect. Now, I've decided long ago that I didn't want anybody else to cause my effects. So I don't want anybody having dominion over me. I don't want anybody else to be caused to my effects. I did that for a long time, and it didn't work. Perhaps you've done something similar. Perhaps some of you have given your power away to parents or spouses, boyfriends or girlfriends or others. In this teaching, we come to the place where we want to take our power back. We want to use what Dr. Holmes said, there's power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you're a part, and you can use it. So we want to begin using our power. We don't want to give it away. We release the need for all of that. We know that we are caused to our own experience. We can do it. That was, I think, Louise Hay's last tour, the I Can Do It tour. We no longer want to blame anybody. I know they've done the best they could with what they had. We all know that at this point if you're in this teaching for any length of time, and we want to hold everyone harmless. Maybe we used to think a parent or a partner or someone knew better than us what was right for us. And then when that didn't turn out, because they really don't know what's better for you, we had a convenient person to blame and have a resentment toward. So we can all definitely use these laws in the wrong way, and ultimately they'll be great learning experiences for us. And since the law is balanced, we get the lessons, right? And sometimes the lessons are tough. And we call them cosmic 2x4s. When you come into this teaching and you really begin to grasp the idea that I am caused to my own experience, and if we give someone the power to control our experiences, we are still caused to our own experience because we just gave them the power to control our experience since we allowed them to do it. Each of you, Dr. Holmes suggested, have executive power to think for yourself, to decide, and to act. We want dominion over our own thoughts, our own mind, and our own emotions. Please don't let the news programs make decisions for you. Seek differing opinions. Don't get your source any one place. Do your own research. Make decisions for yourself. So it's time to start really living. This is what this teaching says, in this new moment, living here in the now, and to toot your own horn and take the power back from anyone outside of you that you have given it to. And as you practice this teaching, you will be less and less other referred. Now that's a term in therapy where, I don't think for myself. I'm going to look to one of you to decide for me. As you practice this teaching, you're going to be less and less other referred, and you will be centered in your own knowing and your own power. And you'll be growing up, and you'll be growing in self-realization. Please recognize, one and all, that it's such a gift to have the knowledge that this teaching bestows. It's the best kept secret of the age, this power, this knowledge, this creativity in you. And you can learn to trust it. Be aware that this law and the use of this law is available to you for your use. You're using it anyway, but we can start to use it more intelligently. So here I want to celebrate using the law to create a great life, full of every good thing, full of prosperity, love, joy, and everything. You see, for me, and I'm going back to Dr. Bill, this is a personal thing. I've decided I want to live in a really nice place, he said. I don't want to live in a messy place, and I don't want to live in some type of a hole. I've decided living or driving a nice car is better than driving a wreck. And he said, I've decided earning a great income is much better than just getting by. I've decided to take nice vacations rather than scrimping and taking budget ones. I've decided that life owes me the very best that I'm able to give to get it. Now note that word, give to get it. Life owes me the very best that I am able to give to receive, right? Now there's the formula for all of us. We don't talk about it enough. To know that I'm able to give, to get a better quality life, to demonstrate the kind of life I want. I must be willing to do what's necessary for that law to flow through. I must be in harmony with it. I can't sit down and expect that the clouds are going to open up and quality clothing that he used to love will just fall upon his shoulders. They're going to drop on him. And he said, I can't expect that God is going to wake me up one day and say, I really like the way you prayed today. Therefore, I'm going to let you win the lottery. You know. Or we can't expect that God is going to say, I really like the way you begged and groveled and lit candles and cried and begged. And I love the way you suffer. You really suffered well. And you've suffered long enough. So now I think I'm going to reward you with 2 weeks of vacation. My concept, Dr. Bill said, of the law is that the law doesn't give a rip what I give it. It doesn't care. But I have to be the person that gives the input, right? I have to be the one that initiates the law. I want to celebrate being in charge of my own experiences. It's wonderful to wake up in the morning and to have an awareness during the day that things are going really well. And they're going well because I am centered in the awareness that I am cause to my own experience. And when things aren't going well, I'm still nonetheless responsible. I can turn that around. And the ultimate celebration of blowing my own horn in terms of energy and tooting my own horn, I think comes from the recognition that you can get smart enough to know that cause and effect are not isolated bursts of energy that work when you give an affirmative prayer or when you have a strongly held belief, but rather cause and effect relationships are always going on, and they never stop. There's never a moment in which you cause, when cause and effect is not an operation. God in you, Spirit in you, is alive and it's responding endlessly to your thoughts and thinking. So in looking at this vast continuum in any area or all areas of your life, we can see very clearly that the last effect that you have becomes the next cause, which becomes the next effect, which becomes the next cause. For example, if I'm bummed out, upset about something, and I sometimes get upset, everyone does, there's nothing necessarily wrong with getting upset. You're not a bad person because you occasionally get disappointed or down or angry. It's what human beings do. You wouldn't want to be in that place all the time because you would get depressed. They'd probably lock you up if you get too depressed for too long. On the other hand, if you get too elated for too long, they might do the same thing to you. And if the extremes are too long or too high, you tend to scare people. But I want you to know, I want you to be aware as much as possibly can that everything that I'm doing is sowing seeds of causation. And if I get myself bummed out now, and if I'm conscious, if I have a chance here and now to turn it around. I have the ability to stop the negative chatter, and so do you. So what am I going to do with being bummed out? If I find myself in a train of thought where I'm just being negative, I've got stinking thinking, I have to find the way to stop it. In my Louise Hay classes, I'll say, stop in the name of love. I have to find the way to interrupt that train of thought. I intend to stop that conversation, to turn it around. As a child, we may have been victims because we were taught so many things, right? Some things really wonderful, some things not so wonderful. And a lot of what we taught, you can think of the 4 agreements, all the agreements that we've had within us for all these years. All these limiting ideas have to be brought to light. As adults, we hold on. When we hold on to this stuff, we're not victims anymore. We're somewhat volunteering. We're setting ourselves up. I decided long ago I don't want to volunteer anymore for this stuff. I don't want to volunteer to be part of anybody else's sick behavior or their power struggles or part of their inadequacy or have any of that thrown upon me. I don't want to be part of their ideas of what I'm supposed to do and be either. In this teaching, we can wake up and have some self-realization and fully understand that the law responds to me as I believe. Now, that means every moment of awareness, it becomes incumbent upon me and hopefully upon you to grow and to expand, right? Not to react, not to retaliate, not to defend and not to strike out. When people are acting out, doing whatever they're doing, that has nothing to do with you. We want to find the means within ourselves to, listen, but you don't have to react. We want to find the ways to stop that process long enough before we choose our response. We'd like to be at choice. So we don't have to act, we don't have to react to everything that goes on. We can understand that they are doing the best they can with what they have, and we simply do not have to respond to any of that. All those spontaneous negative responses we can gain some control over. We begin to feel in charge of our thinking, our feeling, and ultimately our beliefs, so that we can choose to be in harmony with the law, the way, and learn how to use it. And so that's what we offer in the teaching, and that's worth celebrating. It's called awareness. It's called choice. It's called really, I don't want to hurt anymore. I don't want to be a victim anymore of my own thinking. I don't want to play the poor little me, old me game anymore. I don't want to throw my hands up ever again and say, I can't do it. I don't want to ever justify or defend my own inadequacies by attempting to blame it on somebody else or explain it on the basis of what somebody did. I want to celebrate my life and blow my own horn and toot my own horn. I want to play my own song, and I don't want to have somebody else play it for me and then me blame them for being off key ever again. Now, living this teaching is not necessarily easy. It's just incredibly important that you be willing to flirt with the idea that you are worth all the effort it takes. All the effort it takes to feel good about you, to love you. That's the work we do every Thursday night, by the way. That's why it's important to stay in these conversations, where you begin to realize how great and wonderful you really are, and that you're cause to your own experience. And we want to do whatever we need to do to get to that place of self-realization. In the end, one must be willing to give up all of the reasons, all the justifications, all the defenses that we say to ourselves, and come to the place of knowing we are supplied and supported. And we can choose our responses. We can choose our actions, and we can even have control of our reactions. And use whatever it takes to get to that point, ultimately, of really loving yourself. A place where you have a valid sense of self that draws in through that connection, valid experiences that match that inner identity. And then you have real power, because you have a connection that knows that you're wonderful and great and important. And when you slip and you fall back and you forget, and that's what we do, we remember and we forget, that's okay too. Progression is never in a straight line. It seems to zigzag, steps forward and steps backward. And we'll get connected again. None of us are here to suffer. None of us. None of us were created to suffer. Now let's differentiate. You don't really have to suffer. Suffering is not God-ordained, Holmes said. Everybody has pain. Suffering is holding on to the pain. If you want to use the pain as the way to find out what produced the pain stops. And usually it doesn't repeat itself. If you use the pain to hold on to the pain and defend your inadequacy, then it's suffering. And suffering becomes a rut. And gosh, there's enough suffering in the world. I mean, all you have to do is look around with your ears open and listen. People have this problem. And if you only knew how terrible, they'll say, if you only knew how terrible my life is, if you only knew how misunderstood I've been. When you let go of all this type of thinking, the suffering stops. There may be pain, but that's part of life. You deal with it, we walk through it, you transcend it, you do what's necessary to learn why you brought it in and move on to the next plane of consciousness. I'll tell you, in this teaching, I'm going to leave you with a couple thoughts. There's nobody nicer to be nicer to than you. If you don't believe it, then people are going to treat you, and the world is going to treat you the way in which you feel the need to be treated. Then, of course, we can blame the world, or we can grow up and we can learn to celebrate being where we are, celebrate our empowerment, celebrate our wholeness, celebrate our life, and keep growing, to celebrate it even more. I don't want anybody, again, to play my song. I surely would like to be better able to play it myself. And I think that comes from really studying the teaching, to be involved in the classes, staying plugged in, and knowing that this divine will is not for us to suffer, but to celebrate creative intelligence in us. So let's close it with a quick treatment. Let's give thanks today that each of us has an opportunity to celebrate being who we really are and toot our own horns, to feel special, unique, beautiful, loving, and empowered, no more than anyone else, but we are centered on who we are, and in that way live our lives with courage, with dignity, with integrity, with joy, with laughter and love. For we celebrate the life of Spirit in us, and our awareness is that we are prospering in all good things, even as our soul already prospers, today, tomorrow, and forevermore. And so it is. And we'll see you the other side of the break. Thank you.